Good afternoon and Happy New Year. As hopefully most of you know, I'm Peggy Kelsey, the GMC Board Chair and an Executive VP at WEC Energy Group. We sincerely appreciate everybody's flexibility with our change in venue. The closing of the University Club, of course, was very unfortunate for our entire community, especially so for all the employees who worked there. We know numerous organizations have already reached out to those employees with opportunities, and this proves what we all know, that Milwaukee is a very special place, and we appreciate all everyone is doing, and we especially appreciate the Milwaukee Athletic Club and the GMC staff for making this change so quickly into this very beautiful space. While the Milwaukee Athletic Club was able quickly to accommodate our needs for today's meeting, we anticipate 2024 will be a year of new venues for the GMC. We envision meeting in spaces that are integral to our work: for-profit businesses, nonprofit organizations, unique spaces, the rooms that make our community tick. This will be one of the many things the new Member Engagement Committee of the GMC Board will be discussing. And I'm particularly pleased to let you know that Greg Marcus, who is here today, will be the chair of that committee. And who better than Greg to help us identify special places to gather for this work? And of course, he knew about that, by the way, this wasn't a surprise. And of course, with the creativity and connections of our members, many of whom are with us today, we know we can count on plenty of great ideas from our members as well. So as I enter into my second year as the GMC Board Chair, I'm confident that the work of last year, under Joel's very steady hand, has positioned us very well to live out the next iteration of the GMC motto: it can be done. We have a comprehensive strategic plan. Efforts are underway within each of our focus areas: fiscal strength, public safety, infrastructure, and education, which we will dive into a bit today. The most significant role of the newly formed Member Engagement Committee I mentioned a few moments ago will be to identify more impactful opportunities for our members to lead and to participate in this deeply important work. I remind you at each and every meeting to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself to those sitting around you. This is an opportunity to make and renew connections, perhaps for yourself, but perhaps for somebody else. And to get to know those who are solving our community's most pressing challenges and others who just want to assist in that regard. Now, as it is at every meeting, it's my distinct privilege to introduce GMC President Joel Brennan. Joel.
Thank you, Peggy. Just because I probably need to do this for at least the head table up here, please start eating. If you haven't done it already, start eating. It's Monday. The Packers are back in the playoffs, and we're expecting a foot of snow. Winter has arrived in Wisconsin for most of us. I want to just begin today's meeting with a number of us, I think, were affected by the news of just the last few weeks of the passing of Senator Herb Kohl. And so I just want to take a moment to just remember what he meant and who he was to our community. He was a legend, a mentor, a friend to many in this room. When you think of Herb Kohl, you think of someone who was of and from Milwaukee and never forgot that in all of his life and in his work. His dedication to building and maintaining a major league city was apparent through his commitment to the Brewers and to the Bucks, but also through his unwavering commitment to education throughout Milwaukee. While he championed great causes and big ideas, Senator Kohl got probably more joy out of the appreciation of each individual student, family, or teacher that he supported. And so I hope that his legacy, one created by working humbly, graciously, can be an inspiration to all of us as we continue his legacy and build on the support that he provided to so many of us in this room. I think Joanne was potentially going to try to join us, and I don't think she was able to because Joanne Anton is helping plan the memorial service for this Friday. And up until this morning, another one of Senator Cole's close confidants, Chuck Pruitt, was also going to join us. And I just want to talk for a second personally about their connection and my connection to Herb Cole, because I have a couple of my former colleagues from state government who are joining us today, and that's very proud service, and I'm proud to be associated with them. But I never would have been considered for a spot in state government, nor would I have considered state government had Herb Cole not kind of offered up Joanne's services to Governor-elect Tony Evers 5 years ago when he was putting together his administration. Both of them were part of the transition team, and they are just examples of the kind of people that Herb Cole surrounded himself with over the course of his career and what he and they meant to our community. So again, each of us has our own Herb Cole story, and there'll be many more told this week, but I just thought it was worth us noting what he means and continues to mean for our community. I want to also provide some organizational updates. As we begin the new year, the work of the GMC, as Peggy said, is beginning to take full form. Betsy Brenner and David Gay have agreed to co-chair our Fiscal Strength Task Force, which will follow up on the work of the City of Milwaukee Operational Review in 2023. The mayor is sitting here at the table, and we were part of that effort collectively over the course of the calendar 2023. And I know he, like I, and lots of us in the community, are eager to put that to work. And so we have great partnership. The mayor, in the next few weeks, as I understand it, is going to be announcing a new director of innovation role, and that's a partner who we'll be working with throughout 2023. So we'll report back to you, or throughout 2024. We'll report back to you and invite you to be many of you to be part of those reform efforts with our public sector colleagues in 2024. We're finalizing committee and task force chairs for other focus areas. I've had very enlightening and productive conversations with many of you about your role in those efforts in 2024. As many of you are also aware, our staff looks different than it has over the last several years, when much of our team was specifically dedicated to GMC initiatives. With the planned departure of several staff, we worked as a team with the board of directors, our community, to ensure that many of our staff members could explore and find new community roles. In that vein, most recently, Joe Peschel, former program director of the Commons, accepted a new role with the Milwaukee Tech Hub, which he is starting now, and will continue to be our partner in those efforts. While we're still evolving as an organization, the GMC remains actively engaged with several legacy efforts, including the Milwaukee Appraiser Diversity Initiative. A formal partnership with the Milwaukee Urban League has been established, adding to the support this program will receive from Employ Milwaukee. Funding has been secured to ensure this pilot can support the training costs and stipends for up to 10 appraisers in its first cohort. The pilot will kick off in April and May, and we'll share updates and any opportunities for you to be involved and engaged throughout calendar 2024. Before we move on to today's topic, I want to talk just a little about the direction we'll be taking in 2024 regarding public safety, truly one of our community's biggest priorities. By now, you've likely seen the data that we ended 2023 as a community with about 169 homicides in the city of Milwaukee, down from 215 in 2022. It's a reduction of more than 20%. Other major crime statistics fell as well, following national trends, though as lots of us know, we're coming off record highs in many of them. For instance, only 5 years ago, in 2019, Milwaukee only had 98 homicides. So we still have a long way to go. And while homicides are down significantly, it's worth noting that there was much less of a reduction in non-fatal shootings in 2023. So again, there are still many ways in which we're troubled as a community, and things that we still need to be doing. In addition, late 2023 brought reports of challenges in the courts and the criminal justice system, reported on by Rob Henkin in the Policy Forum. We'll announce in the coming weeks the leaders of our task force on public safety and the direction we'll take this year, which will include a formal partnership with the Policy Forum, in which we collaborate on research and bring together community partners working on issues related to public safety. Every one of us knows the importance of this issue to your business, to quality of life, and to our overall sense of being a thriving, vibrant community. So we'll invite your active input in the weeks to come on this issue. There are lots and lots of worthwhile organizations doing really good work, and we're going to make every effort to try to make our work additive and connective rather than exclusionary. So there'll be room for many voices at that table. Please look for details because much of the work will happen outside of these monthly conversations and in the community. At today's meeting, we're going to focus on early childhood education and steps that are needed to make our community stronger. Many of the people in this room were part of the progress in K-12 funding at the state level in 2023. But the legislature, unfortunately, the legislature and the governor found no agreement in the fractured early learning space. The problems that plague early care and education take a toll on families, children, the workforce, and economic development opportunities. While efforts by local and state leaders are underway, it seems clear that major changes to the system will not occur without private sector leadership as well. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by leaders who have been addressing these issues over the last several years and continue to. Before I introduce and welcome our moderator, I just want to recognize two of my former colleagues who are joining us today. I think people know that before I came to the GMC, I spent 3 years in the Evers administration. I remember on the eve of joining that, I ran into Kim Murata, who many of you know, and her husband, Mark Murata, the late Mark Murata, had the position that I had in state government as the secretary of the Department of Administration. And Kim walked up to me and said, "Hey, I hear you're doing this," and we just talked a little bit about that experience. And she said, there's a lot about the job that you won't like. There's a lot about public service that is a big challenge, and we all know that. I could tell you that the pay isn't very good, as my former colleagues will attest. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. All the perks that you would have had with the job years ago, those have all been taken away. But she said the reason to do the job, the single reason to do the job is the people who you will be surrounded by. And my two former colleagues who are here today are just sterling examples of that and the examples of the best that we get in public service in our community and in our state. And so I just want to note that Emilie Amundson, the Secretary of the Department of Children and Families, is here with us, and Missy Hughes, the Secretary and CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Emilie has served in her position since the start of the Evers administration, and even prior to that worked at the Department of Public Instruction as the Chief of Staff to Governor Evers when he was at DPI. Missy Hughes joined us about 10 months into the administration and has been working for the last 4 years on economic development work all across the state and the region. I spoke earlier about the honor with which Herb Cole served. I can think of no better examples of who and what are best about public service than my former colleagues, Missy and Emilie. So thank you for joining us today. So I said all those nice things about Missy and Emilie. I'm just going to let Vince Lyles come up here and take the podium. Vincent Lyles is a friend to most of us in this room. He is about 2 weeks away from marking 1 year in his new leadership role at Milwaukee Succeeds, has worked in leadership roles in the community in Milwaukee at the Boys and Girls Club, at Baird, served formerly, if I'm not mistaken, with the city of Milwaukee as the election commissioner. So his impact and his imprint on Milwaukee has been significant, and he continues to do work on the issue we're talking about today, the connection between economic development, K-12 education, and early childhood education. So I give you my friend Vincent Lyles.
Good afternoon, everyone. You all will indulge me just a little bit. I thought I would make a few opening comments about early childhood education, and hopefully you all can hear me. Thanks to Joel and to the GMC for having us here this afternoon, and we are very excited about the opportunity to engage with all of you, and hopefully we can get even more of you involved with this work. Better? Heather, can you hear me back there? All right, very good. You know, as many of you know, the vast majority of brain development happens before age 3, which is why early childhood education is so critical. You know, as I was reading a quote by a gentleman who works at the Harvard Center for Early Childhood Development, talked about brains are built, not born. Brains are built, not born, which is why this is so important. And while we all agree it's critically important, the entire ecosystem of early childhood education is struggling. Let's look at it in terms of just access and quality and cost. Currently, there are about 5,000 more young children in Milwaukee with parents in the workforce than there are child care slots or spaces. About 7% of Milwaukee's providers meet the highest state standards for quality. Currently, child care is more expensive in Wisconsin than in-state tuition at any of our UW system schools, at a cost of about $16,000 for one infant. And for a lot of our struggling families, that's about a quarter of their income. Operating a program is expensive due in large part to the low child, and very important, low child to staff ratios that are necessary to keep our kids safe and healthy, engaged and supported. However, parents are struggling to make those costs, to pay those costs, and there aren't, quite frankly, enough supplements to make it work. Why does it not work? Missy will talk about some of that. Emilie will also talk about some of that. Why does it not work? But the widespread staffing shortages also play a critical role in this. When you think about the fact that we are paying staff people on average about $13 an hour. Right now, you see many of our centers, you know, I saw my friend Laura Gutierrez is here, who runs the UCC Center, but as well and effective as they are, they're struggling to find enough people, so they can't serve as many kids as they'd like to serve. Charlotte Sain is also here from COA. They're struggling as well, trying to find the appropriate number of people to serve. So some of their rooms are dark, unfortunately, right? And the need continues to grow as we continue to see more and more kids built. On average in Milwaukee County, about 9,000 to 10,000 kids a year are born. So this is an ongoing issue, and hopefully today we can get to kind of the root of some solutions towards fixing the problem. But ultimately, good children lead to a good economy and even a better Milwaukee. And our parents are leaving the workforce, quite frankly, to make those choices, particularly for our infants and toddlers. When working parents don't have access to high quality education, they're forced to make hard choices, such as working fewer hours, changing jobs, or dropping out completely. According to the research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, over 40% of Wisconsin's moms report they cut back hours or quit a job because of the cost of early childhood education. Today, speakers, hopefully, will provide you and share with you how to create some more opportunities for success in that space for our earliest learners and their families, which in turn will lead to better academic outcomes, a reduction in crime, and a more robust economy. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Emilie and Missy to join me up here, and we're going to go through some questions and hopefully give you guys a chance to also ask them some questions about the issues at hand. Everybody hear us?
Testing. Ooh, wow. Yeah, that one's working.
Is this one working? This one's working too.
All right, great. All right. Not every day I get to play moderator. Nobody listens to me at home. Better? There we go. All right, terrific. All right. Missy, I'm going to ask you first. Give us a general overview of your department and specifically what are some of the biggest issues facing you from an economic development perspective, particularly as it relates to the southeastern Wisconsin.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see you. And sitting up in this front table, I had no idea that there was such a big group here. I want, if I can, just to add a little bit to what Joel said about Senator Cole, because I know that here in Milwaukee, he had such a tremendous influence, but my experience with Senator Cole was way out in southwest Wisconsin, where I live in Viroqua and worked for 17 years for an organic dairy farmer cooperative. And Senator Cole was incredibly helpful to us in a number of different instances and was always there to help the farmers and to help our business thrive. So he had a reach that extended all across Wisconsin and of course beyond that. But I just wanted to wish you all well in your celebration of his life this week, and to add that little piece of knowledge I had about him. So WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, is the state's lead economic development agency, and our job is to work with communities and businesses and individuals all around the state to help them thrive and prosper. When there's an idea for a project, when a business wants to expand, WEDC's role is to work with our partners all around the state and be there to help make that happen. So when we think about how do we really make our economy thrive in Wisconsin, it's not only, providing a tax credit to a business or a grant to a community, but it's thinking about those foundational needs of our workforce and of our businesses and what do they need in order to be able to thrive. And it's things like education, it's things like infrastructure, broadband, and transportation, and it's things like healthcare. It's all of these pieces that have to come together to make sure that our economy has the opportunity to thrive. And that's why it's incredibly important as we sit at the state level in the Evers administration to do what he has asked us to do, which is connect the dots and make sure that we're talking to each other and we're thinking with each other about how we can really lift the whole state up and make sure that those foundational pieces are there. When I think about an economy that thrives, it means that the government is delivering workers who are educated, who are fed, who have their children in a safe place, who have their senior parents in a safe place, who are able to show up at that factory door or into that office and be there and be present for the whole day and then go home to their families and be able to provide for them. So our role is to think about what are all these different pieces of the puzzle that come together to make sure that that Wisconsinite has the opportunity to really prosper and succeed.
Terrific. Emilie, I'll ask you the same question as it relates to DCF.
Sure, great. Want to say thank you for just the opportunity to be here. And I think, Missy, you sort of sparked my memory on, what's my Herb Cole story. And, he's the original friend of education. I cut my teeth as a public school teacher, and he had the reputation of clearing the donors choose list. And so we all knew in classrooms across Wisconsin, if we needed something funded, he was that friend of education. And indeed, there's a program across our state that's still running today through the Herb Cole Foundation to honor great teachers. And so that's just such a powerful legacy to leave behind, and something that is truly a place of pride for teachers across our state who are Herb Cole Fellows. It's very exciting. So I have the pleasure of running the Department of Children and Families. As I mentioned, my background is in K-12 education, but when Governor Evers was elected, he really saw children and families as the place where he could do that good kids and family work, and asked me to consider coming over and thinking about a different set of programs and thinking about how to sort of pull on the same levers with different tools. And I found it incredibly exhilarating for the last 5 years. It feels frankly a little freeing to be able to use programs like early care and education. The child welfare system is in our domain, family and economic security, refugee programs. So it's an incredibly robust portfolio of programs that really work to strengthen communities and support communities. So from prevention all the way to potentially some of the worst days that families might be having. DCF is there to really support. Here in the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, we actually provide direct services. So we run Milwaukee County's Child Protective Services. So that's one way that we have a very, very intimate, direct touch to the county. And then we also license all of the child care facilities here in the city of Milwaukee and around the entire state. We also administer the subsidy program for low-income working parents who need that additional subsidy to send their kiddos to high-quality early care and education programs. So those are a few of the ways that we provide that direct support. To Missy's point, Missy, from the very first moment she hit the ground in the Evers administration, she was calling me to talk about child care because it relates to what it looks like in communities when communities are healthy and thriving, and she really understood that from the start. So I've been really lucky, I feel, in this administration to have the support of colleagues who understand that when you build a strong K-12 education system, you build an early care and education system, you have a strong housing market, housing stock, and you've got a good transportation infrastructure. Families are going to come to your place and they're going to want to stay, and it doesn't matter if it's Viroqua or here in the city center. That seems to be a recipe for a strong and thriving family environment. So pleased to be here and excited to dig in.
All right, exciting. So talk a little bit about, if you would, Emilie, and then Missy, I'll touch on a question for you as well. But talk a little bit about, we're at a stage now where there was an attempt to get child care counts passed in Wisconsin. That didn't happen, right? But we were able to secure some funds through Governor Evers' ARPA dollars. So talk a little bit about where we stand and what the plan is going forward with those dollars.
Sure. So just a little bit of history. I'll take you back to the dark days of the pandemic and at the place and time where, most schools across the entire state were shut down. And on those days or during that week when all of the schools were shutting down, K-12 schools across the state, we were on the phone with the childcare industry saying, we're asking you to stay open. If you can stay open, if you can be that safe place for kids to go, because there are folks that need to continue to report to their jobs during a time when we were in a very uncertain place. And our child care industry stepped up in ways that we never imagined. There were some child care providers who never closed. And certainly our goal with the providers who did close were how can we get them back open, safe, and secure as quickly as possible. And so enter child care counts. We had a significant opportunity through ARPA funding, through federal COVID relief funding, to provide a direct payment to child care providers through this federal funding stream for really the first time ever. We have a very modest federal pot that we use mostly for child care subsidy in the state of Wisconsin. And we provide very, very little state funding. We provide, frankly, only what is necessary to obtain the federal match. And so this influx of federal funding was not only a lifeline in those dark days of the pandemic, setting up those supply chains to PPE and making sure that there were enough staff when folks were needing to cycle out, making sure that we could spread out children so that they were safe. Not only did it provide that type of funding, but it also allowed us, as the pandemic wore on and as this funding stream stayed viable, it allowed us to gradually start to increase that wage of the child care workforce without passing that price tag along to working families. And that's the key facet that was really the game changer for the Child Care Counts program. That's why, when you see anything written about child care counts, you see the words like a lifeline for us. We would have closed were it not for this funding. Families would have been priced out of care were it not for this funding. As the economy rebounded from COVID and the median hourly wage started to increase in other industries, child care providers were not able to provide that requisite increase. We started to see massive drift of our child care workforce over to frankly, less skilled labor, less skilled positions. We were losing folks to Quick Trip. We were losing folks to Target or to Amazon because the hourly wage was so much higher. Childcare Counts is an opportunity, or was an opportunity, to really supplement and braid in a third stable funding stream to help offset those significant costs that would have been otherwise passed to parents. So that was the ask, just to remind you, we had, I would say, a very successful push through the last year and a half. There were many people in this room that provided so much support, really elevated this issue, lifted this issue, brought more people to the table. We built the biggest cross-sector table that we had ever seen on the issue of childcare, and it just didn't quite get over the line. It certainly got a lot of press attention. It became a flashpoint. Governor Evers himself visited over 60 child care providers over the summer, really trying to get a limelight put on child care, but ultimately the budget ask failed in the legislature. That is when our governor called up all of Missy and my colleagues and said, look in the couch cushions, find those extra ARPA dollars, and he led a push to reallocate as much funding as he possibly could to continue the program for as many months as we possibly could. So he was able to find about $150 million to continue this program for an extra year and a half at about a 50% reduction in the allocation. But it's the lifeline that our industry needs as we start to have these types of conversations. What can we do next is really the question at the fore of 2024. I'm going to say this, I'll probably sound like a broken record by the end of this panel. We need a braided funding approach. We need a state investment in early care and education. That's not something that I'm walking away from. That's not something that Governor Evers is walking away from. We want to continue to talk about that while we explore each and every viable opportunity to do other things as well. Because we've said from the beginning, childcare counts is a huge piece of the puzzle. It's not the puzzle. We need as many good ideas coming to the table as possible. So that's really my sort of opening ask to this group is any and all ideas are welcome in 2024.
If you mentioned the current contribution by the state of Wisconsin as relates to getting the federal funds. My memory of reading that data suggests it's about $16 million a year.
That sounds about right.
That equates to about $50 per kid. Think about that. Birth to 3 or birth to 5-year-olds in Wisconsin, that $16 million equates to about $50 a kid. That's what the state currently contributes beyond the child care counts money that was coming from the feds, or now their infusion by the governor with the ARPA dollars. So we can do better. Missy, if you would, talk a little bit about some of the dollars that you've been able to push towards early childhood education, and in part, trying to mirror up some of the work you're doing with workforce initiatives.
Sure. So we attempted to come at this from almost another direction to think about how can we find solutions to help this challenge using ARPA dollars, but thinking about it from the terms of how do we remove barriers that are in existence to either create new child care centers or to keep the ones that are up and running viable, and using the governor's dedication of $128 million towards what we called workforce innovation grants. We went out to communities and said, if you had a pot of money, what's your most pressing problem and what would you do to solve it? And we had so many communities come back and say childcare is our most pressing problem, not surprisingly. And we were able to support a number of grants that really dug into kind of the problems that surround a childcare challenge, whether it's a facility and needing a facility. In Door County, we help support the construction of a facility, but then we also looked at housing for those childcare workers, right? We want them to have steady and secure housing so that they can then, again, come to work and be present at work every day and be able to take care of what they need to take care of at work. We assisted here in Madison, not here in Madison, sorry, I've been on the road for the last 2 weeks. We assisted with Madison Area Technical College, helping to educate students about what it means to either be a child care worker or to be an owner of a child care facility and have the skills to be able to do that. At the same time, we supported child care at Madison Area Technical College because amazingly to me, this statistic, over 60% of students, whether it's at university or technical colleges, are student parents. So they're facing the struggles of being able to get through with their education and have their children in a safe and secure and affordable place. We also assisted here in Milwaukee with housing for childcare workers and being able to get the skills that you need through the technical college training without leaving at the end of that training with debt that you're then faced with paying. So in a number of different ways, we tried to find innovative solutions to some of the barriers that, you know, are kind of tentacles that come out of all of these different challenges with running a business, hiring employees, and keeping those employees.
Yeah, great. You know, to that point, I also want to make sure I point out to, we have our mayor here. City of Milwaukee made a historic contribution with its ARPA funds as well, total of $7 million. $5 million of that money would be used for supporting the ecosystem as a whole in terms of the centers and the staffing, but also Mayor Johnson and his team also said, what can we do to get more people into the sector? So there, $2 million of that $7 million is being used to facilitate programs to get particularly more males and other people of color in the early childhood education space as teachers, as aides, as supporters in that work. So again, thank you, Mayor Johnson, for that work there. Emilie, if you would talk a little bit about, you know, I referenced the business model being broken, and you talked about braided funding. So talk a little bit about why the business model doesn't work.
Yeah, so you brought up, you know, that in order to keep kids safe, in order to make sure that we have a wonderful brain stimulating learning environment for every kiddo who is in an early care and education setting, you know, you need to make sure that teachers are skilled, and that means certifications or sometimes accreditations. You need to make sure that there are the right number of adults for kiddos, and that changes, you know, as a kid ages through the rooms, that ratio changes. And you need to make sure that you're pricing your business at a price point that parents are able to pay, to afford. And that is a really difficult proposition, it turns out. And what I've noticed as I've traveled around the state is that our child care providers have developed the kind of relationships with their parents in their community. They take it all on their shoulders. They know exactly what that ceiling is for what parents can afford in their particular community. And they feel intense pressure to make sure that parents in their community can actually afford the care that they're seeking. They have, as a result, artificially depressed wages to child care workforce to be able to create the kind of environment that allows parents to access care. And that just on its own creates a very unstable business model. It creates the kind of scenario that we're seeing now where there are not enough child care workers coming into the industry. The folks that are in the industry, over 60% of them are considering leaving the industry in the next several years. We've seen about an 80% decline in the number of folks getting into family child care, so running child care out of their homes. It's just become the kind of industry that is, it's an unsustainable industry if you're looking to raise a family. It's an unstable industry if you're looking to turn a profit.
So can I want to jump in on, because Emilie and I have talked so much about this. The choices around childcare are economic decisions. So as a family, you are choosing, how am I going to run the economics of my family? I'm going to, have both parents working. That's a choice that you're making. And often it's a choice that you have to make, right? It's an economic decision in order to pay all of our bills. And now you have a child, and now you have to make a decision about what is the best way to have this child taken care of during the day. And I would venture to guess that for many people in the room, you were able to make the decision that one parent would stay home. For people like me, you were able to make the decision. I had twins, so economically it made sense for me to have a nanny. And I was able to walk out the door. Some people, have to make the decision to take your child to a child care facility. And often that decision, and today, means another mortgage payment. I have a good friend of mine who has a child who's a 2-year-old in Madison. It is $2,300 a month. And so then that's going to create a whole other cascade of decisions, including should one of the parents, most likely the woman, because most likely the woman is making less money, again, an economic decision, is going to stay home. So all of these different pieces are what's happening at the family level. And what I actually wanted to touch on, but I went there, is at the business level, you're making decisions. You're not necessarily making decisions out of the goodness of your heart. You're making decisions of, how do I keep this parent, how do I keep that person buying my product and not charge too much of that? Well, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to lower the cost of wages to my employees in the hope that I can keep selling this product. Well, indeed, then in a market that's got a really tight demand on labor, that employee is going to leave. And so now I'm going to try and raise the price on this employee and raise that wage there. Well, now I've lost the parent who's buying my product. And, oh, by the way, when that parent has a product that's only 6 months old, it's going to cost me more, and I have to make those decisions. The whole point of this, and what I'm talking about, is that you can be the best manager, you can be the best business owner in the world. And at the same time, this model, largely driven by the private sector, right? The parents making the decisions to buy the product from the private business owner, is not a model that is sustainable, regardless of how great a business owner you are or how wonderful you're doing. And even if all of your parents are willing to pay top dollar, it is still incredibly a difficult business model to sustain, given the pressures on the workforce and things like that. So that's why when you have the ability to then step in with public funding, we jumped at that, because that was the way to essentially put a Band-Aid on this business model that is, when only driven by the private sector, not sustainable. And now we're facing this moment of saying, okay, well, that was great, we had those fundings, but the decision has been made not to sustain those funding, and either we challenge that decision or we need to find innovative solutions that, it's going to take all of us, all of the brain power that's in this room and beyond, to be able to find.
And I think that is the thing that we've been watching both in the state of Wisconsin and across all 50 states, because all 50 states have a version of the Child Care Counts program. I think almost every state used a portion of their ARPA dollars in a similar fashion. And what we're watching closely is most other states did not find a way to continue that runway of state funding beyond, when was it? June, I guess, of 23. And so we're watching those states to see, are the rates raising? And indeed they are. And that has definitely been the fear, is that rates start to raise, they raise again, and they raise again, and pretty soon parents are needing to make those difficult decisions, particularly in the middle class. And I think that has been a real shift in the last year, is that, we do have a subsidized child care assistance program for low-income working households. And if you happen to be at the top of the economic ladder, you can shop around and you can find the care that your family can pay for. It's those folks in the middle, those folks that are, I'm married to a teacher. We crunch the numbers every single year. There was 1 year that it did not make sense for my husband to work because his entire salary would have gone to pay for childcare for our two under two, as I like to say, which is the really expensive, from about age 0 to age 3. That's where you're paying that hefty price for childcare. Those are the decisions that working middle-class families like mine are making each and every day.
Great response. We've got we've talked a little bit about the business model, but we've got a lot of people in here who are also very passionate about K-12 education. So if you would talk a little bit about, first you, Emilie, and then Missy as well, talk a little about kind of the connection between early childhood education and K-12 education.
Yeah, so I mentioned I'm married to a teacher. He's actually a kindergarten through second grade art teacher. And so he meets those little ones at age 5. And the stories he brings home are awesome. I love listening to his kindergartner art stories. But what he tells me is, there are still, he's a Madison Public Schools teacher, there are still so many kiddos who come to school, who come to kindergarten, and they are already behind. They are already at that deficit. And I know here in the city of Milwaukee, we talk a lot about that, right? We talk a lot about the work we need to do already in kindergarten. You hit the desk for that very first time, and it's like, we're going crazy, reading and writing. We're doing everything we can to get those kids to a place where they're at grade level, where they're able to read. We hear a lot about reading by grade 3, and increasingly the research shows that that's such an important milestone for kiddos. I contend that the work we need to do starts so much earlier than when those kiddos come to school for kindergarten. And what I see, there are a number of really high-performing early care and education entities in the city of Milwaukee that have developed really important relationships with the K-12 sector. They say if we're going to provide that high quality care, that brain-based learning, that age-appropriate learning from the moment they're born to the time that they leave us at age 5, you're darn right we're going to make sure that they're landing in a place where their learning is going to continue at the pace that it has happened for the first 5 years of their lives. And so they talk very openly with families about building that pipeline, early care and education up through a wonderful K-12 education. And they are absolutely agnostic, these early care and education providers, about whether they're sending kiddos to a choice, a charter, a voucher, a public. It doesn't matter to them. They're looking for the best experience for those kiddos that they've nurtured for the first 5 years of their lives. And I think that's the emerging conversation that I'm interested in having, is to really acknowledge that we are building pipelines of learning, of healthy brain development, of learning how to be pro-social, right? I've got a 4th grader and a 6th grader who really like screens. They really like tablets. They are products of a pandemic environment that had them on screens and tablets for much of their learning day. We're trying to deprogram that right now. Our early care and education professionals are building that kind of pipeline, that stimulating brain-based pipeline that is going to put them in a place where they are ready for everything that kindergarten throws at them. And I think that's the mind shift, the paradigm shift that we need to start to contend with as we think about funding. Missy talks about the fact that this is a private industry. And I think that was a little bit of the hesitation from the legislature last session to say, well, if we go around propping up every private industry, everybody's going to come and want some sort of a handout. And really, I think we need to shift and start to think about what early care and education does for our infrastructure, and truly that it is part of a seamless transition to K-12 that helps keep our kiddos on the path to lifelong learning. So that's my provocation.
Emilie, I would add, since I rely on you to be the expert on brain development and things like that, but I would add that we're creating a pipeline of parents. So if you're passionate about K through 12, the key to a successful K through 12 system is engaged parents who are carrying forward the education at home, making sure homework gets done. If you have parents that are exhausted by the time the kids are in kindergarten, they are going to say, take these kids, I am checking out because I need to work, I need to do all of these things. But if you want to create also that pipeline of really engaged parents and that success that comes from that strength at home, you need to start that from birth and provide that support for those parents all the way through.
Right. No, absolutely, great point. And again, thinking about the future, right? Building that skilled workforce for our future here in Wisconsin and Milwaukee in particular. So we've got just a little bit of time before we open it up and allow you all to ask us some questions about early childhood education. I'd love to hear from the two of you as you think about kind of the future, next year, 2 years. What are some of the things you're working on besides, you know, the kind of the funding part of it? What are some of the other things, initiatives that you are embarking upon?
Sure. Yeah, one program that that I haven't talked about yet today that we've been test driving the past 2 years, also with ARPA dollars, is a program called Project Growth that really works to, it's similar to Missy's program around workforce innovation grants, but it's really specific to trying to build capacity in local communities to support childcare locally. And so that looks like building the kinds of tables, you know, frankly, like the ones that I see in this room today, really expressly putting childcare providers in the center of conversations about how to make communities strong. What I hear from business owners a lot in the childcare industry is we've never been at those tables before. The tables where folks are talking about the excellent piece of real estate that's coming up in a few months, and for me to be able to have access to that type of conversation, or the nursing home that's closing down. By the way, nursing homes are perfect future childcare centers. Ask Laura Gutierrez back there; she knows. But this you know, type of conversation about sort of city planning, county planning, the school district sitting at the table with early care and education providers, and really trying to solve this at the community level. That's a program that we've invested some ARPA dollars in. We've got sites, I think we've got over 30 sites across Wisconsin, and seeing a lot of really exciting innovation happening right at the local level. In addition to that, we have a partner-up program that's really working to match businesses, so these are usually small and medium-sized businesses, with pre-existing childcare providers. The state provides a little bit of the cost of care. The industry partner kicks in a portion of the cost of care, and the worker in the business receives highly subsidized child care. And so it's not that model of how can we, you know, put more child care centers directly in business or directly in an industry partner. It's really about trying to find and strengthen the capacity that already exists in local communities to support the workforce. So that's another program that we are watching closely. It's similar to things that other states are doing. It's sort of a braided model, you know, where the employer, the employee, and the state are all sort of invested in providing heavily subsidized childcare. One of the things that I talk about a lot, and Missy's been an awesome partner with WEDC, is my agency has almost no ability to help when capital projects come up. And so I'm tapped into a lot of childcare provider conversations where they're like, look, we're looking to grow our capacity right now, our infrastructure. We've got an excellent opportunity. We need your help. And I try as best I can to connect to those funding opportunities, either locally or with some of our partners. But that is not a place that we have any kind of an investment right now. Is really helping the childcare industry to identify, secure loans, and grow into those spaces and places that make sense in communities. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention, you know, Wisconsin Shares that I brought up a few times, low-income subsidized child care program. You know, you can qualify for Wisconsin shares up to, I think, 185% of FPL. I would love to see us explore some possibilities to get that even higher, to get more of the middle class into eligibility for some subsidized childcare. I think we are carrying a huge balance right now. There are far fewer Wisconsinites that are actually accessing that benefit than are eligible for that benefit right now. And so working on Wisconsin Shares and really thinking about how do we, you know, if you think about the K-12 voucher program, and then we start to think about Wisconsin Shares and how can we kind of bring those two things a little bit closer together into the same universe, I think that's a really interesting conversation for the future.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I think some of you who've been involved in voucher and charter programming will recognize that raising that income level has opened the doors for a lot of people and added to the success of a lot of our students in our community. So again, thanks to you for thinking outside the box a little bit in that regard. So Missy, if you would, talk a little bit about some of your employer partners or businesses that you're working with in terms of some of the things they're working on to improve access to childcare.
So one of the things that we've really been doing at WEDC is to look around the state for innovative models that might provide us more information about how we can really help this childcare challenge. So we've got businesses around the state that are providing childcare in an actual facility that they've built and they're providing to their employees. Quick Trip is an example of that. Aaron's and Company in Brilliant is an example of that, where the businesses have just said, this, you know, going back to these economic decisions, economically it makes sense for us to provide this to our employees and directly make that happen. We also see businesses that are doing things like buying slots at childcare facilities, and so therefore the childcare facility has a guaranteed income for a certain number of slots, and they can provide that, the business can provide that as a benefit to their employees. And so we're looking and continuing to talk to our businesses about thinking about innovative ways to solve this. Often a business is concerned about, oh, well, you know, then I'm providing a benefit to one class of employees that I'm not providing to others, and you know, then we just talk about the workforce challenges that they're facing. Don't you want to keep their long-term employees? And it quickly becomes a real opportunity for a solution. We're also working with communities. We have what's called a community development grant, and often in the past that grant has been used to help a business on a main street redevelop a property that's been sitting idle and get that back to working. And the community comes to us and says, we want to support that. We're proactively going to the communities and saying, are there any other projects? Are there any childcare projects? Are there any housing projects where you might need help to kind of just gently say there's challenges here that we might be able to help you solve? And indeed, many communities are saying, oh, we didn't know you could help us with that. We didn't know we could use that funding to develop a childcare facility. So we're wanting to make sure that the communities know we're thinking about that, and we're thinking about how can we be creative with our grant programs. WEDC is lucky enough to be a quasi-public private entity, and so we have some flexibility with our funds, and we want to be dynamic, we want to be smart government, and we want to deploy those dollars where we see the biggest needs, and so we're really working hard on that.
Thank you. So we've come to the point in the program where we're opening it up to all of you to ask us some questions. So Heather, I don't know exactly how you want to do that. If people just want to stand where they are, if you want to. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Don't be shy. Thank you. Missy, you partly answered my question, but can you expand on it? It seems as employers, what we need are great employees that are happy both at home and in the workplace. We provide certainly health care to them, EAP, many aspects of their life we help support. Have you seen ways in which states have partnered aggressively and broadly with employers to really make a change? You mentioned, I think, 2 or 3 companies, but it seems to me that the model would need to have to change significantly, and just appreciate your understanding of this and how you could really provide momentum around this for all of us who employ.
You know, I think, as Emilie mentioned, a lot of the states are in a not dissimilar position to Wisconsin in trying to find these solutions. Some of the things that we've seen start to be deployed, and, you know, I think the jury starts to still be out whether they're working, are things like tax credit benefits to businesses that are making investments in childcare. I've recently seen, you know, a pass-through benefit from the employer to the employee that allows for the employee to then spend those dollars on childcare. So I think there are creative ways to do that. Of course, you know, you kind of have to have that challenge first in understanding what's the cost to the state going to be for a tax credit or something like that, but then also making sure that the benefit that you're providing is getting to those who really need it the most, rather than just an idea that isn't actually getting deployed. So we're learning as we're going. I don't know if Emilie has any examples of any other states. We're certainly also looking to other countries to determine, you know, what are other countries doing and how have they gotten ahead of this challenge.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of states. I would say tax credits are definitely a tool that we're seeing being deployed in red states, in blue states, in purple states, and so that seems to be the low-hanging fruit. That's sort of the easy answer. I think the maybe middle lane would be, really thinking about that. And I love the way that you phrase the question, because it is about that sort of creating that family-friendly workplace. And in businesses that I've toured that are part of our Partner Up program, they really put the benefit of that subsidized childcare, where the business is picking up part of the cost of childcare for a handful of employees. They put that in the sort of promotional materials, along with dental, along with EAP, along with healthcare benefit. That idea of dependent care benefits, normalizing the idea that becomes part of the package of family-friendly workforce sort of offerings. I think Michigan is really quite far ahead on that type of model, that sort of braided trifecta model, I would call it, with business and state and an employee all sort of vested together in finding childcare. The reason we like that in the childcare industry, I would say, is because we are first exhausting the stock of high quality available early care and education that already exists in the community, and sort of like hardwiring those partnerships. I think that the call that our licensors get most often from business leaders is like, yeah, we see it, it's a problem. Should we open our own childcare on site? Boy, that seems hard. And we're like, yes, it is hard. And that's why you should find professionals in your community and partner with them. So that's definitely I would say the most advanced conversation is the one about how do you open employer-sponsored childcare right on site. And I would really encourage you to sort of think about those lower-hanging fruit places. And I think there is a bill moving through the legislature right now that is working on that tax credit piece.
Hi, what do you believe the most effective way to measure the effectiveness of early education programs is, and what have we learned from the early results?
Sure. So we do have a quality system in the state of Wisconsin. It's called Youngstar. And so this is a program that all early care and education providers know pretty well. It's an easy 5-star rating system. It's built for families to be able to identify high quality care. What we can say is that there are more kiddos attending high quality early care and education programs in the state of Wisconsin than ever before. That's fantastic. So we've got more 3 to 5-star ranked programs in our state. And what that means is the folks who are working in the child care center have, they understand how brain development works. They understand how to stimulate learning that's age appropriate and play-based. And they understand the connection of how to sort of build those building blocks up through kindergarten. We do have a longitudinal early child childhood data system that we are, I would say, working with right now to try to get some better concrete outcomes. We've got excellent national data sets, and Vincent, I'm sure you've got some of those types of return on investment nuggets and things like that, and we can certainly send those out. But we know that the return on investment in early childhood, in terms of outcomes for early education success, so K-12, reading and mathematics. We know that graduation success. We know that even incarceration. We've looked at all of these numbers on the national data set. What my goal would be over the next 3 years is to really utilize the early childhood longitudinal data system we have right here in Wisconsin to be able to put some better numbers to the kinds of gains and impact that we're seeing here.
Another question?
Hello, Vincent.
Hello, how are you?
It's Stu Wangard.
Sure,
I have a question for Secretary Amundson. And we're honored to manage your facility on 27th in Wisconsin. This is a difficult one. I have a nephew who is currently going through Boston College, full ride to become a teacher. They give him a stipend to teach. They give him lodging. I'm a sponsor for a woman and her daughter to come to the United States from Venezuela. This woman has a degree in biology. She's a teacher today. And we're trying to get her in the United States. Her husband works for us. And he came through that narrow window where everything he got approved, and he has all of the documentation. Is it possible to have somebody working here as a student teacher? Because I can get a student visa fairly easy, but I cannot get a visa to get this young woman and her daughter into the United States. So is that something that you're familiar with? Have you experienced that at all?
It's not something that I'm intimately familiar with, although there might be some practitioners in the room who do work specifically with either K-12 or direct care and early care and education who might have a better handle on that. Now, I know that here in Wisconsin, we've welcomed thousands of new Wisconsinites from places all over the world, many of them refugees, and many of them find a place very quickly in early care and education. Up in Green Bay, we have a really burgeoning, exciting refugee community that's really a Burmese refugee community that's really leaned into early care and education, and certainly that becomes a really viable field. I know less about the visa process, but it is something that we can look into, because as I mentioned, we do have a handle in really welcoming new Americans and more specifically refugee populations. I do know that in the K-12 sector, that is a strategy that folks have deployed, because we know K-12 also has huge teacher shortages, and I know that there have been districts, and Milwaukee certainly could be one of them, that's recruiting from other countries to fill those staffing shortages. So that's something that I could dig into a little bit for you. Thanks.
Thanks, Stu. Really appreciate it. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize and call out some of the folks who supported the work that we're trying to do at Milwaukee Succeeds. We do a lot of policy work and data and analysis and research, and Dave Salata from my team is sitting in the back of the room. But we are supported not only by the Greater Milwaukee Foundation and Ellen Gilligan and some of the board members who are here, but also Northwestern Mutual. And I see Amy Lindner back there, United Way. Shameless plug, but the point is that it's a comprehensive approach in order to provide some answers to these issues that are critical to our community. We certainly appreciate all of you all being here with us this afternoon. We know this is not the end of the discussion, You know, our point in Joel's request of us was to initiate some dialogue and some thoughts around this. We'd love to engage with all of you around these issues, and as you can see, there are multiple points of entry, right? Some of you could be involved in some of the administrative code work. Some of you could be involved in the cost-benefit analysis. Some of you could be focused on the quality side of the work. So we certainly are welcoming and open to any of the things and ideas and people, suggestions you all might have to improve this part of our economy. You know, if we think about this, right, we're not just talking about 2023, we're really thinking about 2033, 2043, 2053, as we think about the future of Wisconsin, the future of our workforce. I will leave you with this. Every employer should be doing something to address these issues, because what's good for children is good for business. So with that being said, I thank you both, Emilie and Missy, and then I'll call Peggy back up to the stage to close us out.
Thank you all for joining today's meeting and focusing on this strategic topic of paramount importance for our community and for the GMC. As our guest speakers shared, there are multiple pillars that need to be aligned in order to create equitably sustainable solutions. There are numerous ways to address the challenges that currently exist within early childhood education. Oh yes, we know it can be done, and it is my hope and expectation that we collectively begin to discuss how we can come together to fix this system. Who better than the GMC to ensure this does get done? In the spirit of Senator Herb Kohl, may we all come together to support a brighter future for the youth in our community and our state. As a reminder, as always, please provide feedback, share ideas, ask questions, whatever's on your mind. You can use those GMC note cards on your table and leave them in the basket where you picked up your name tag. I would also remind you to leave your name tag there so that we can reuse them the next time. Our next meeting is the annual meeting on February 12th. Please make sure that date is in your calendar and keep an eye on your inbox for details about that meeting. I now adjourn the meeting, and I will announce the randomly selected winner of our door prize. And for those of you who haven't been here before or since we started this, it's just something I did at my first meeting, frankly, because we had something that we wanted to give away to somebody. And then said, why don't we just do this every time? Sort of a shameless incentive for you to stay until the end, but frankly, more importantly, it allows us to highlight either a member organization or a local business, something like that. So I mentioned Greg Marcus earlier, and I want to thank him and the Marcus Corporation now for contributing today's prize. And we think of what was on TV last night. This is very appropriate. It's a pair of movie tickets. And the winner is Nancy Hernandez. So Nancy. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your days. Stay safe tomorrow. Hopefully you all remember how to drive in that white stuff on the roadway. See you next time.